Turn any old cast iron pan over and run your thumb across the cooking surface. If it feels like fine sandpaper, it is modern and it is worth about $20. If it feels like glass, somebody machined that surface by hand and you are holding something from before the foundry stopped bothering. That is the first thing to check, and it takes 2 seconds. Most people never do it because they are busy looking at the front of the pan for a name. So that is what this is. Not a countdown, just how to work out. In about a minute, whether the cast iron in your house is a $30 pan or a $3,000 one, and what the difference actually is. Get a pan. I will wait. Right. 4 things decided in this order. The first is the surface, which you have just felt. Until roughly the 1950s, American foundries ground and polished the inside of every skillet after casting because no one would buy a rough pan for a stove. That step cost labor, and one by one every company dropped it. So a glass smooth interior puts the pan in the older half of the century before you have read a single word on it. The second is weight. Pick up a modern 12-inch pan, then an old one the same size. The old one feels almost hollow. They poured thinner because they finished better. If it feels heavy and crude, it is late. The third is the bottom, and this is where the money is decided. There are 4 things that can be down there, and each one tells you something. A raised ring running around the outside edge of the base is a heat ring. Heat rings lock the pan into the hole on a wood stovetop so it would not slide. And when stoves modernized, the foundries stopped spending iron on them. A heat ring generally means before about 1940. A small filed scar in the middle of the base, like a little rough patch that has been smoothed over, is a gate mark. That is where molten iron was poured in and the tab broken off. Gate marks generally mean before about 1910, and they are the oldest thing you will find on a common pan. The words "Made in USA" mean after about 1960, because that is when country of origin marking came in. If you see that, stop hoping. And a number, which brings me to the 4th thing, and the one that trips up nearly everybody. The size number cast into a pan has nothing to do with inches. A number 8 is not 8 inches. That number matched the diameter of the hole on the stove it was made to sit in, and every company numbered slightly differently. I have watched people measure a pan with a tape and argue about it. Ignore the number for size. It matters only as part of the maker's pattern. So, smooth inside, light in the hand, heat ring or gate mark on the bottom, no country marking. That is an old pan. Now the maker decides the price. Here is the ladder, roughly, and I will go through what identifies each one. At the bottom, unmarked pans with a rough interior, $20 to $40. There is a great deal of it, and there always will be. Above that, unmarked pans with a smooth, machined interior. This is the interesting part of the bottom end, because the big foundries deliberately made unbranded lines. They sold the marked pans to department stores and the identical iron without the logo to the 5 and dime shops. 2 prices, 1 product. The tale is that the pan describes itself. Instead of a bare number, you get the size written out in words, low on the base. Something like 6.5-inch skillet, and no maker's name anywhere. A smooth, unmarked pan that tells you its own size in words is a Wagner in plain clothes, and it is worth several times a rough, unmarked pan. Next, Early Lodge. Lodge is still going, down in South Pittsburgh, and because they are still in business, people assume every Lodge is a shelf pan. But there is a long stretch in the middle of their history, from the early 30s until 1987, when they did not put their name on the pan at all. Those are the ones worth finding, and what dates them is notches. The heat ring is broken by 3 small gaps, at 9, 12, and 3 o'clock. Collectors call them 3-notch lodges. No helper handle opposite the main handle also means before the mid-70s, $50 to $90. And the earliest Blacklock era pieces run $85 to $250. Next, Birmingham Stove and Range out of Alabama. Their pans are unmarked, and they kept casting heat rings into the 60s, long after everyone else stopped. which makes people date them wrong. The tell is the handle. There is a sharp raised ridge at the base of the handle that does not stop there. It runs on into the side of the pan. Nobody else did that. The later Century Series pans are common and honest, $40 to $80. It is the early red mountain iron from the 30s that is worth chasing, and that runs $200 and up. Next, Martin Stove and Range out of Florence, Alabama. The marking is small, plain, low on the base, and easy to lose under 70 years of carbon. Wipe the bottom before you judge any pan, and this is the one that punishes you for not doing it. A number 12 in honest shape is $350 and up. Next, Griswold out of Erie, Pennsylvania, from the late 1800s to 1959. Griswold changed their trademark repeatedly, which is a gift, because the logo shape dates the pan on its own. The earliest marks say simply Erie, with no Griswold name at all, and those are the dearest. Then a large slanted script, then a big block, then the small block, which is the latest and by far the most common. Big and slanted is early, small and square is late. Early is worth multiples of late for the identical pan. A small block number 4 is about $150. Also read the town line, because it went Erie, then Erie, PA, then Erie, PA, USA. The more address, the later the pan. Next, Favorite Stove and Range out of Piqua, Ohio, and this is the friendliest mark in cast iron. The name is cast in an arc with a curved line under it, and the whole thing reads like a smiling face. Favorite poured thin and light even by old standards, so if a pan feels too light for its size, turn it over. The company was gone by the late 30s, so the supply is fixed. A number 11 is $700 and up. Next, Wapak out of Wapakoneta, Ohio, running from about 1903 into the mid-20s. On some pans, they cast a Native American profile into the base. That mark is the whole game. The same pan without it is an $80 skillet. With it, $200 to $1,200, and the large sizes have gone past that. But that Indian head has been reproduced, so here's the check. A real one is crisp and finely detailed, and it sits on a pan with a smooth machined cooking surface. A fake is soft and mushy in the detail, and the pan under it is usually heavy and rough inside. Forgers copy the picture and skip the finish, because the finish is the expensive part. And at the top, 3 things. A Griswold number 13. 13 was an unlucky number, so fewer were sold and fewer survived. And that is exactly why the size is worth the money. A 13 in honest shape with the early slanted logo runs about $2,500. And one carrying the large block mark has gone to $3,300. Then the spider. On some of the earliest Erie pans, before the Griswold name was cast on anything, there is a small spider on the base. It was only used for a few years, and almost nothing survives with the mark still sharp. A number 8 with a clear spider and a heat ring sold for $4,000, and a very good one has passed $10,000. If you turn a pan over and find a spider, stop what you're doing. And Wagner Ware from Sidney, Ohio, the polished ones. What you want is Wagner Ware Sidney with an O beside it and a raised heat ring. A polished Sidney number 8 in genuinely fine condition has reached around $5,000, and the very top of this market has passed $17,000. One warning on Wagner. There is a logo out there that looks ornate and has 1891 printed on it. That is a 1991 Centennial reissue, a modern pan in a costume. Now the part that costs people money. Rust is not the problem people think it is. Light surface rust cleans off, and collectors expect it on 100-year-old iron. Pitting is different, because pitting is metal that is gone. A warped base that rocks on a flat table is a real problem. A crack is the end of it. But the thing that actually destroys value is cleaning. Do not take a grinder, a sander, or a wire wheel to a pan. Grinding erases the casting detail and the maker's mark along with it, and every collector sees it from across a room. I have watched a $200 skillet become a $40 skillet in about 90 seconds that way. Do not put a rare pan in oven cleaner or a lye bath before you know what it is either. Read the mark first, identify it, clean it after, and gently. One honest note, These are real prices out of the collector market, and that market moves. Treat them as a guide and have anything you think is genuinely rare looked at properly before you sell it. Right, before you go, here's the whole thing in 4 lines. 1. Feel the inside. Glass smooth is old, sandpaper is modern. 2. Read the bottom. Heat ring means before, about 1940. Gate mark before, about 1910. Made in USA means after 1960. 3. The size number is not inches. Find the maker instead, and on Griswold, the shape of the logo is the date. 4. Do not grind it, do not sand it, do not clean it until you have read it. That is the whole method. Go and turn over every pan in the house tonight. It takes a few minutes and you only have to learn it once. If this was useful, subscribe. And tell me in the comments what is stamped on the bottom of yours. I read all of them and I will tell you what you have.